Hey, Mark. Mark, can you hear me okay?
Hey, yeah.
Hey, how you doing? All right, which one of these do you want to start with? One on the right or the left? The one on the right starts at 1.
Yeah, we could start there.
Okay, the one on the left is completely different material. It's a little bit probably different than you're used to. This is probably your first go-around with probability frequencies.
Yeah.
But I think we can go through this page relatively quick.
Okay.
How would I find the mean on number 1?
One second. You add up all the numbers and divide by the amount of columns there.
Okay, so get me started. What would the first numbers that I would add up?
75, 80,
No.
80.
Notice that there are more people that scored 85 than there were that scored 75. So you can't just add up the 75s and the hundreds. In other words,
Okay, I get it now.
you get it? So
Yeah, so,
you need to add 75 times 5.
yeah, and then 80 times 7, and
There you go.
yeah.
And so forth and so on, and divide the whole thing by what?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
By how many students there were.
Oh,
It's
okay.
what we're going to get by the time we get done. In other words, I could write this like this. There's 75, there's 5 of those. There's 7 80s. And I'm going to add up all the scores and divide by the number of scores. So
Okay.
by doing it this way here, we're adding up all the scores. And the number of scores is the sum of these numbers, which I believe is, let's see, 21, 29, 36. So we're going to divide all of that by 36.
Okay.
And I don't think we should waste the time to actually come up with a number. You can do that. That's just arithmetic.
Okay.
It's the method that matters. On number 2, how are we going to find the median score? Not the mean, the median score.
Isn't it just the one in the middle? So 80?
No? This is similar to the first problem. In fact, it's not really any different if you look at it. They're saying that there were 4 60s, there were 8 70s, there were 6 80s, there were 10 90s, and there were 3 perfect hundreds. So I could take this bar graph and turn it into this table just as easily. They both are giving pretty much the same kinds of information. So to find the median, what am I going to do?
You add them all up and multiply them.
Nah, not add them up. If I give you a sequence of numbers like this, what's the median number?
5.
Okay, would it matter if I made that a 7? What's
No.
the median number? 7. So it's not so much what the sum of the numbers are. That doesn't really have anything to do with the median. The median is you lay out all the numbers from little to big. In other words, there are 4 60s. And then there's 8 70s. and so forth and so on. How many are there altogether? Well, let's see. There's 4 plus 8, that's 12, plus 6, that's 18, 28, and 3. There's a total of 31 scores.
Okay.
So when I line them all up, which one will be the median?
60.
16th score that's listed. Now, notice I didn't finish listing this. There were 8 70s, so I still need 5 more 70s. And there were 6 80s. So when I get done, I'm going to have 31 scores written. Which one will be the middle one? Is it the 15th one, the 16th one, the 17th one?
There's 31 overall scores, right?
Right.
So it'll be the 16th one.
Correct. Well, the 16th one, that's the 12th one. And there's, excuse me, that's not the 12th one. That is the 18th one. 80 is the final 80 is the 18th score. So there's the 16th score right there.
Okay.
So that's the median.
All right.
If you have an odd number of terms in your sequence, then it's the middle term that's always the median, like this one. That's the third term in a sequence of 5 terms. If you have an even number, it's a little harder. I take away that 10, what's the median score between those 4?
Which 4? Sorry.
The top. Between 1, 2,
Okay.
5, and 9, what's the median?
5.
No. It's the middle one. Well, the middle one comes between the second and the third term. So I have to average those two numbers. So
okay, I thought it told you to multiply them together and then divide it by 2.
Right. 2 plus 5 is 7 divided by 2. 7 halves would be the median.
Okay.
So it matters whether there's an even number of terms or an odd number of terms. This problem is particularly easy because it doesn't really matter. 80 is the middle score if you line them all up from smallest to biggest. Okay?
Okay.
So let's look at number 3. What's the first thing I need to do on number 3? Whenever they're talking about median, mode, and mean, you kind of need to do one thing to start.
Order them correctly?
Yeah, exactly. Put them in order. Well, I got 2 8s, and I got a 9 and an 11. Okay? How would I get the mean?
Mean? You add up all the numbers and divide by how many numbers there are.
Okay, so when we add up those 5 numbers, we get 40. So 40 divided by 5, the mean is 8. What's the median?
The median is, that would be 8 also.
And what's the mode?
The mode would be 8 also.
So it's got to be C. In other words, since they're all the same for this problem here.
Yeah.
Okay. This bar chart is very similar to this bar chart. The range is going to be the distance from the lowest number on your list to the highest number. In number 2, what's the range?
That'd be 60 to 90?
60 to 100, right?
Okay.
There were 3 people that got 100. So on the left side of my list, I'm going to have a 60. On the right side of my list, I'm going to have 100. The range is 40.
Okay.
What's the range on number 4? By exactly the same logic.
0 to 4.
Correct. What's the median number of volunteer hours completed by the junior class? Well, how's my list going to look? Get me started on the list, and then I'll know you know how to do it.
Okay. Wait, what do you mean?
Well, I was able to arrange this one in a list of numbers, a sequence of numbers. I had 4 60s, followed by 8 70s, followed by 6 80s, followed by 10 90s, followed by 3 100s.
Okay.
So let's do the same thing on the bottom chart, because there's really no difference. The vertical axis is the frequency. Even though it says number of students, that's what this one means also, is number of students, the vertical axis.
Okay.
Okay, so if I was going to lay out a list of this, instead of looking at it in a bar chart, what would I start with?
0.
4 of them.
Okay.
You see why? Because there's 4 students that got 0. And then there's 3 students that got 1. How many total students are there? 4, 3 is 7, plus 5 is 12, plus 1 is 13, plus 1 is 14. So the median is going to come between which 2 terms? There's 14 terms in here.
Median would come between you have to solve for the 6th and 7th term and then add them together and divide it by 2.
It would be the average of the 7th and 8th terms. Notice that if there's a total of 14 terms, I've listed the first 7. Well, let me list the next 7. There's 5 2s. There's only 1 3, and there's only 1 4. So there's the 7th term. There's the 8th term.
Okay.
What's the median?
1.5.
Correct. All right, let's go to the next page. What's the range on this one? And they help you by saying in inches. Does this X mean anything on 7?
Yeah, to not do it. We didn't learn it.
What's the range in that table in inches?
1 to 7.
Where are you getting that?
What do you... Because it goes from 410 to... 11, 12.
How many inches is the range?
10.
9 actually. The difference between 4 foot 10 inches and 5 foot 7 inches. In other words, the lowest height is 4 foot 10 inches. The tallest height is 5 foot 7 inches. Whatever the distance is between those two, well, that's 7 inches plus 2 inches. 9 inches between 5 foot 7 inches and 4 foot 10 inches. Another way to do it, if you're not quite sure, is let's convert that. 4 foot is 20, or 4 times 12, 48 inches. So that's actually 58 inches, the 4 foot 10. And the 5 foot, 5 times 12 is 60, so that's 67 inches. So it's the difference between the lowest and the biggest, which is 9 inches. All right, number 8. 8 is a problem you are going to see on the ACT exam. More than one of them. Okay, they love their average problems. I call it an average problem, not because it's an average problem, but it's a problem about averages. In other words, they want to know the means on this. Well, there's one word that you should remember to always associate with average problems. And that word is totals. You're not going to work with averages in solving this. You're going to work with totals. What are the first 4 numbers? We don't care what their average is. That's what I mean, is we're not going to work with the average of those first 4 numbers. We're going to total them up. Now, let me do it real quick. We got 87 plus 83 plus 74 plus 89. 333. That's what they total. 333 for 4 tests. Now, the rest of it. What grade must he get on a 5th test? It's a very, very common problem for somebody like yourself who's trying to raise your average grade. And what if I'm going to average 85 on 5 tests? What must my totals be?
Equal to 80.
85 times 5, right?
Yeah.
In other words, if I had the following scores, which I'm just making up a hypothetical here. We can tell that that average would be 85, correct?
Yeah.
But so I know that if I take that and divide by 5, I'm going to get 85.
Yeah.
Well, the total is equal to what? Always. It's equal to 5 times 85. In other words, if I multiply both sides of the equation by 5, I get the totals on the left and I get that number over there. That number is 425. In other words, for me to average an 85 in the class, I've got to score a total of 425 on my 5 tests. Well, what did I score on 4 tests? Totals.
300. You scored 333.
So what must I score on the 5th test to get totals of 425?
92.
Correct. And that's the way you do average problems. Now notice, really at no point did I try comparing averages. In other words, the way a lot of people would do this incorrectly is to find out the average of those 4 scores and try to compare it with 85. And that never works. That's never the right way to go. So in your head, associate totals with average problems or mean problems.
Okay.
Okay? Because it actually becomes pretty easy when you do that. Notice that this was not hard at all. Once I came up with the total of the first four, I don't even care what that average is, but the tricky part was figuring out what the totals must be in order to average 85 with 5 tests. Well, we would know we would have to total 425. So that tells you what your fifth score needs to be. All right, number 9. The mean grade on a test taken by 15 students was 70. What's the totals of all their 15 grades?
Wait.
Remember, this is a mean question again.
Oh, yeah?
So the only thing we care about is totals. If 15 students averaged 70, what was the total score of all 15 students?
70 times 15, 1,050.
Okay, so that's their total scores. Now it says when one more student took the test, the mean for all the tests was raised to 71. Well, this was with 15 students. And
Okay.
what are the totals with 16 students?
Okay, I get it now.
Good.
Mm,
You have a calculator?
yeah, 1,136.
Which is 16 times 71.
Yep.
That tells you what the score of that 16th student was. What is it?
He got 86.
Right. So the average score was raised from 70 to only 71 by his relatively good score. In other words, his score was 16 points over the average, but he only raised the average by 1. That's why it's always a mistake to compare averages. They don't really tell you much at all. You always want to work with totals. Totals, totals, totals. You may call it sum, which is fine, but just know how to get the totals. So 10, we got time to do 10 since it's pretty straightforward. Tell me how you would do 10. Start the finish.
Get the average of the total scores of the 8 students, which would be 8 times 85.
What's that number?
680.
Now what?
And then you get John's test score. So now 9 students took the test.
Okay.
And it was you multiply that by 86.
Okay, what's that number?
774.
That's the totals of all 9 students.
Yes. And then you subtract 680 from it. You get 94.
Right, there you go. Now you got it. And that's the way you want to do pretty much all average problems. Conceptually, I'll just tell you how to do 11. Since I have a 4:30 appointment, I don't really have time to do it. Number 11, because we're talking about median, not mean, make sure you notice that, because when they talk about median, the process is completely different. The process when they're talking about median is to list out the test results in order. Okay? They're not in order right now. They kind of look like they are, but notice this 87 is out of order. That 79 is out of order. So you have to rearrange these scores in perfect order. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. So the median is going to be which? It's going to be the 6th, the 7th, the 8th, which one?
The 13 divided by 2. That's going to be the in between the 7th and 8th.
The way to do that, if there's 13 scores, I'm going to have 6 over there, I'm going to have 1 in the middle, and I'm going to have 6 over there. There's 13, and there's my median.
Okay.
So it's the 7th score. Okay? Well, I don't really have to do all of this, because all I have to do is find the 7th one. Well, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 79 is 6, and the 80 is 7. So 80 is my median. Julie took the test later and the median didn't change. What must she have scored?
80.
Right. Because once Julie takes the test, it'll be halfway between the 7th score and the 8th score. Right? Because now there's 14 people. And so you have 7 on one side, 7 on the other. The one in between is between number 7 and 8. And her score, if it's 80, we would have 7 would be 80, 8 would be 80, halfway in between those would still be 80. She must have gotten an 80.
Okay.
All right, Mark, I got to run. I'll talk to you next Tuesday.
All right.
Bye-bye.
See you there.